I guess my only question is, in that communication, is there something that, like, some parents might want to take their students out of school to, and have the opportunity to do that with this event. So in that communication, is there going to be a description of some sort of leniency, both for if a parent is concerned, and this is spring, so let's face it, we're all up against our 10 days, whether you have a doctor's note or
Right.
not.
Yes.
So is there going to be some expression of, if you have concerns that your especially elementary age child is not going to be able to resist staring at the sun? And you're right, it is good practice to not stare at the sun, and the day of activities will be reminding people of that. But even adults, this is not an event where when you stare at the sun, typically your eyes hurt and water and you can't help but look away. The whole reason the eclipse is this big warning process is because it won't hurt your eyes. And being someone with their elementary ed degree, I know that kids are going to be like, oh, it's not so bad, it's not hurting my eyes. So in that communication, could there be something explained to parents that if they feel the need or would like to take their students out, by all means to celebrate the event, and that will not be, have any sort of negative impact? And
Yes.
also, what kind of, I don't know, I just have a little bit of secondary, I of course understand that. Something in me says, if you tell an elementary age child, don't look up when it's going to be 91% dark, and we all hope for a cloudy day in some regard, and we all hope for a sunny day in another regard. But that's my only, like, how are you going to massage this communication to include those factors?
Well, certainly, I'll be glancing up, even though we shouldn't. I mean, it's just a natural thing, right? But so
exactly.
I would
Yes.
leave the work of how to address the elementary kids to the elementary teachers, who I'm sure will handle it beautifully. And I wouldn't dare to suggest how to do it because I don't know, but I'm sure they'll do a good job with it. With respect to excused absence, it's something that did come up. And we have, many parents have educational trips and vacations and the days and all that. And we really have tried to discourage or encourage students to come to school. And so there's a little hesitancy on my part to say, well, we'll just give excuse days if you decide to have off. Now, we will work with individual parents on an individual basis. We have some flexibility in the office, but I have shied away from the idea of saying it's a excuse day if you want with your children, because we've kind of been pushing back in other instances where parents have good things they want to do, but we've said, well, come to school. So we will deal with people very fairly and very upfront, but I'm a little hesitant to give the blanket all's clear in a note from me, at least, but so I'll work that at the building principal. So I don't know if there's anything else you mentioned.
No, thank you for that explanation.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I would say is that I know we don't have a board meeting between now and the event, but in the event that any of these circumstances change, or districts talk or superintendents talk, and there's a decision based on a weather event of whether it's a cloudy day or a sunny day, I think I, as a board member, would be comfortable with the administration making that weather determination just as it would for any other. So
Yeah.
I think the administration's best judgment here and what you think should occur is wonderful. And I would also, based on this conversation, I would not want to personally hold the administration to it if factors change and you choose to have an inclement weather, or if other districts, or if something else comes up. That would be my only comment. I wouldn't want you to feel bound by
No,
this discussion.
I very much appreciate that. And the regional superintendents did collaborate on this. I think they're pretty locked in on a plan after having considered every possible option available. But I think we're pretty good. We're going to focus on business, student safety. We recognize it's supposed to be a fun day, that we can do some fun things. But the timing is particularly bad for this, or particularly good, because there really is no decision. We have to focus on getting kids home.
Right.
And like if there's sports out, we're going to, try to work that through. I know Mr. Spangler has been trying to rearrange schedules. It'll be like instead of a rain delay, we'll have like a dark delay for a short while, maybe with the baseball team. So, but I think we'll be in good shape. I think it'll be a fun day. But again, we're going to be maybe a little less excited about it than some other places, but in the end, I think we're handling this the best way we can. So
thank you.
Then the last thing I have, also Mr. Carney has been pushing the excellent idea of this 988 number on the back of our ID tags. Dr. Trinkle has been talking to a lot of people. We're coming to the view where we do think this can be a good idea. And so we're looking at how to do this. Is there any additional information that could be put on there? And so we'll be able to talk more about that in the future, but just a brief update as far as moving along on that particular point.
Is that secondary only?
No, I think
Universally, K through.
I don't know about K through. I think maybe middle school up. Are we talking about middle school or IS? 6 to 12, I think it was. Yeah.
So secondary.
Yeah. Yeah. Same for safe to say. Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Next month, as a preview of coming attractions, I'm going to be presenting to the board about staffing, class size, initial placement on the salary schedule, and we're going to be doing an interim review of our strategic objectives. So we're going to really be gearing up on some budget. I know Mr. Pepe has a lot of budget information coming, I think, in the next meeting in April. So we'll be really very much gearing up as we head full force into the spring to do some budgets. And now it is my great pleasure to call on our two student representatives this month. Lydia Derstein, is Lydia here? Yeah. And Morgan Weaver. Morgan is not here. Okay, so you're going to carry the ball for the both. Welcome, Lydia. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And the stage is yours.
Thank you. Hi, so hello. My name is Lydia Derstein, and I am a high school senior and a student council secretary. To begin here, we have our student recognitions. And so with respect to LCTI, we have that on February 20th to the 23rd, the Pennsylvania DECA State Career Development Conference was held in Hershey, PA. 11 competitors from 6 Lehigh County high schools scored well enough in their events to secure spots at DECA's International Conference scheduled April 27th to the 30th in Anaheim, California. 2 Southern Lehigh students placed and medaled at the state conference. While they were unable to qualify for nationals in California, everyone at this high school is so proud of them for representing our school. These students are Kai Worsler for marketing and entrepreneurship, and in business services marketing, he won the gold medal for Role Play A, and Vivian Zeller, who for advertising design and commercial art came in second place for the chapter banner. Next, we have our junior Natasha Ding, who on Saturday, March 16th, placed first in the environmental 11th grade category at the 33rd Annual Lehigh Valley Science and Engineering Research Fair presented by Lehigh University. Natasha has been promoted to the Delaware Valley Science Fair that will take place in Oaks, PA in April. She will be among 900 other middle and high school students from 13 feeder fairs. These fairs include Bucks, Montco, Delco, New Jersey, and Delaware, just to name a few. 14 top winners at the Delaware Valley Fair will be promoted to the ISEF in Los Angeles in May. From March 13th through the 17th, the high school drama department presented the musical, The Addams Family. It was a huge success every night with great performances and great crowds. This past Thursday, March 21st, the Art and Literary Magazine held their annual coffee house event. The event ran from 6:30 to 9 p.m. in the high school cafeteria, and over a dozen students performed. This past Saturday, the annual Minithon event was held at this high school. Over 100 students participated in the event, and it ran smoothly. Minithon's original goal for the year was to raise $20,000. At this point in the year, the Minithon club members have raised over $25,000, with a few more fundraising items left to wrap up before the official donation is sent to the Four Diamonds Fund. The Southern Lehigh robotics team had 2 competitions in March. At their first competition, the team was in second place after qualifying and was the captain for the second alliance, making it all the way to semifinals. At the competition, the team also won the Industrial Design Award, which celebrates a team that demonstrates industrial design principles, striking a balance between form, function, and aesthetics. At the second competition, held on March 23rd, the team did well but faced challenges. They ended up coming in 7th place after qualifying matches and were picked to be on the 4th alliance. Unfortunately, they lost both of their playoff matches as they battled some programming issues. The team will compete at Lehigh University next week, April 4th to 6th, to which they are excited and motivated due to the opportunity to qualify for the World Championships in Houston, Texas from April 17th to the 21st. This would be a huge accomplishment for the team because they have only been to World 4 times in their 20-plus years and have made it back-to-back years only 1 time. Now, in terms of athletics, Beginning with swim, the season has finally wrapped up, but congratulations to our girls team for taking third place overall in the 3A District 11 swim meet. A special congratulations to Isabel Johnson for setting a new school record in the 100-meter fly with a time of 58.80 seconds. On March 13th and 14th, we sent 9 swimmers to compete in the state swimming and diving competition at Bucknell University. While they did not place, all of the swimmers competed hard and represented Southern Lehigh with pride. As for the rest, all spring sports began on March 4th. So far, all of our teams are off to an amazing start. The following teams are still undefeated: baseball, girls lacrosse, boys lacrosse, girls track and field, and boys track and field. Finally, to close, our upcoming events begin March 27th, where high school juniors will take the ASVAB exam. April 2nd, where tickets for prom go on sale and will run until April 18th. Friday, April 5th, the speech and debate team is holding their annual spaghetti dinner in the high school cafeteria. Monday, April 8th, all seniors will have a mandatory senior meeting in Spartan Block with the high school administration to review scholarship opportunities, end-of-year events, graduation, and more. Wednesday, April 10th, National Honor Society will be hosting their induction ceremony in the high school auditorium. Friday, April 12th, the Fashion Club will be holding their annual fashion show. Friday, April 19th, the PMC will be hosting a Battle of the Bands in the high school cafeteria. Friday, April 26th, the junior class will host the 2024 Junior-Senior Prom at Steel Stacks, which will run from 6 to 9 p.m. And finally, Tuesday, April 30th, will be the annual high school band concert in the high school auditorium. Thank you so much for your time.
Great job. Thank you so much for the time. Megan was ill today, so she sends her. So that concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Lydia, thank you for stopping by. And you're welcome to stay the whole time, but we also don't mind. You have other things to do with your busy schedule, so feel free to sneak out at any time too. But we really thank you, Lydia, for coming out. Yeah. And your parents accompanying you. Thank you for sharing your daughter with us tonight. We appreciate it. Yes.
Nice job.
And that concludes your superintendent's report. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Mann. Moving on to curricular student and staff services, we
Sorry,
have.
before we move on, do you mind if I just have a question for Dr. Mann?
Sure. Yeah.
I just-
About
just a quick-
superintendent's report. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Go
it was
ahead.
regarding,
Mhm.
It came up from a speaker about Liberty Trails. Are you able
Yes.
to provide us with any information on that
Well,
program?
we currently we have posted and are actively seeking to moderate two open positions to fill 2 recently vacated positions in Liberty Trails. We're very hopeful that we will be able to find individuals to take on these roles. They're non-traditional because it's an odd program. There's not a lot out there like it, but we very much are actively recruiting and hope we can find somebody to get them in place so that this very valued program, valued by administration, and I know the board, can continue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now curriculum student staff. There's some items on our agenda tonight and this is one of them where no action is required. Our consideration and revision of the 2023-24 health and safety plan as required by the state is on our agenda. So we are required to view this, I believe, every 6 months. That's correct. So it is there and a link is provided. We do not need to take any action on this item, but if there's any question or comment on it now. I'm sorry?
It certainly seems antiquated.
Yes,
With
yes.
a lot of the
Well,
information
yes.
regarding COVID in particular.
As many state requirements are. I'm going to go on the record and say that, yes, such as posting meetings in newspapers and yes. It's just one of those things.
It's a requirement for us to review it based on our federal grants.
So in order to be eligible for those grants, we need to review this. And so it is well worth our time in that case. All right. So I'm seeing no questions or comments on this plan. Wonderful. All right. Moving on. We do have a motion here. This does require action. Motion to consider approving the CLIU 21 Student Driver Education Program Agreement for the effective date of July 1st, 2024 to June 30, 2025. I understand this is an annual agreement that we vote on. This is no impact on our current driver's ed program or instruction, just an annual agreement to provide another opportunity to our students. To kind of a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz and Dr. Wayock. Any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, moving on. And actually, I'm going to take the next two items. I'm sorry, there's a page break, so I didn't see the others under student and staff services. So could I have a motion to take items C and D together? That is the Flexible Instruction Day program application and the proposed Southern Lehigh Jump Start camps. Dr. Trinkle gave us a brief explanation at our last board meeting about the Jump Start camps, something we hold annually in the summer. And the Flexible Instruction Day is, again, just to give our district options with its calendar days and instruction should we need it. There's no plan to utilize that, initially unless it's an as-needed basis. Could I have a motion to approve items C and D?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz.
Second.
Mr. Boyer, thank you for the second. Any questions? We'll get to approve in a minute. Any questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Mond.
Dr. Trinkle, could you just go through, when I look at the flyer, we talk about the selection process. Could you just go through that a little bit with me so I can understand that process? Thanks.
Yes, administration will work with our specialists, our MTSS and our reading specialists to identify those students most at risk for academic progress using our formative summative assessments throughout the year. And that's how students are identified and offered the opportunity to engage in the program for the identified times.
Thank you.
Great question. Any other questions? All right, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion for C and D carries. On to special education student services. We have a draft special education state plan for the 2024-2027 school year. Oh, I see. This is not, the board is not necessarily taking action on this item or approving the plan, as the agenda explains. This is just the inaugural kickoff for a 28-day public inspection and comment period on our district website. So it is just the board's giving its blessing for that public comment period to be kicked off. I just want to say that I want to commend the special department for seeking parental input in an online virtual format. It was great that parents got to weigh in. I saw that advertised through district website and communication, and I hope folks took advantage of that. And this is yet another opportunity for parents and community members to weigh in on this plan over the next 28 days. So we're not approving this. We're just giving the administration the blessing to start that viewing period. Any questions or comments on this item?
Just wanted to add one.
Yes, thank you,
one thing,
Dr. Trinkle.
That the opportunity last Wednesday for our community to meet is not a requirement. We did that as a more inclusive opportunity to gain feedback. So I want to commend the special ed department for that as well. It is not a requirement to do that. We opted to do that to gain more feedback.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. We really, yes, and commend the special ed department for reaching out for feedback. Thank you. All right, seeing no other questions or comments, I don't believe I asked for a motion because it's just kind of a board blessing. Anybody object to this kicking off? All those in favor of starting this viewing period? Aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. You have the board's blessing, and we'll look forward to seeing how that develops and when we eventually vote on the plan. Moving on to the IU intergovernmental agreement. This does require action. Motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement between the CLIU for the special education services for the 24-25 school year. Can I have a motion?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Wayock, and thank you, Ms. Cruz, for the motion and the second. Any questions on this? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We don't have any items under technology section this evening on our agenda. Business and finance. On to the bills list and the treasurer's report. We'll take these together. And Mr. Pepe, anything to highlight in those two items?
Not really. The only thing that I will call out on the bills list is there's two bills that didn't quite make the bills list. That's why they're broken out separately. One is REV Robotics for $2,200, and the other one is Country Cupboard Inn, which actually came up in Leah's report. That was the Best Western in Lewisburg for the athletics for the swim team that went to the Bucknell University competition. So those are broken out separately. I went through the bills list. It's pretty much the same usual bills. Really nothing to report on them tonight. And the treasurer's report is before you. I think the big story there, it continues to be interest. And if anybody's paying attention, interest rates have kind of capped out, but the federal funds rate right now is about 5.25 to 5.5, and we're still enjoying really good interest. They're expecting that to go down 3 times over the next year, and then I think 3 more cuts in the following year. But I'll talk about that more next month with budgeting.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Pepe. Yes, Mr. Bond.
Mr. Pepe, I just wanted to ask, what is the largest bill that we have this month?
That's about $500,000.
Yes.
That's the transportation crisis.
Right. And that is, just to clarify one more time, that's a monthly charge, right? So it's
Correct.
the largest thing in our education, in our budget this month again. And I would recommend that people use our public transportation as much as practical. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Pepe at this time? Seeing none, did I ask for a motion in a second already? No, I did not. All right. Could I please have a motion to approve those 2 items?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz. And a second? Thank you, Mr. Mond. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Number 9, support services. I'd like to take all 3 of these items. 2 of them are very good news items. 9A and B are approval to pursue grant opportunities for our construction projects at Liberty Bell Roof and Chiller. And item C is a trash and recycling agreement. I'm sorry, my computer froze up there for a second. Trash and recycling agreement with Trin Hauling. Pardon my
Yeah,
Shrin. Shrin, thank you, Hauling. Could I have a motion for those 3 items? Thank you, Mr. Boyer. And a second? Second, Dr. Warwick, thank you. Any questions or comments on any of these 3 items? My only comment is to thank Mr. Pepe and his office for writing the grant writing process. I understand this is your department. Dr. Trinkle handled some of our other grant writing, and we understand that Suddenly High sometimes is not in the best.
We'll get excited if
Economic.
we get money.
Yes, we're not necessarily in the economic position to receive these, but it's well worth taking the chance.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments? Yes, Ms. Cruz?
No.
Okay, no. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Human Resources. Can I have a motion to approve the Human Resources report as linked here on our agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Wack. And a second? Thank you, Ms. Torba. Dr. Ake-Little, anything to highlight in this particular report?
The only one I want to highlight, as I usually do, is folks who are retiring.
Yes.
And so we have a secretary at Hopewell, Carol Privitera. She has been with us for 21 years, and she will be actually effective April 15th, but she has functionally stopped because she is taking all her days. So
Okay.
we actually have put in the part-time, actually it's on this board, the part-time librarian secretary will be moving into that role. So it's a pretty seamless transition.
Okay, thank you. And was there another retirement? I only know because I recognize the name or not.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yes,
The
it
page
was
breaks get
classified
me
staff and
too.
certified staff, yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry to Maria Ramuni for forgetting to mention you. So I'm going to do it now. She also has 21 years of experience, and she is a counselor at the Liberty Bell Elementary. So our elementary folks are really, they're a big part of obviously the community in those schools, and they will both be missed. So she will be ending service with us at the end of June.
Okay, so at the end of June. So yes, congratulations to them in their retirement. But those are two faces behind desks sitting in our hallways that will absolutely be missed. And we wish them the best. All right, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments for Dr. Akelittle? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Let's see, committee reports. I will start with myself. I have had no meetings to report out since our last meeting, so I will move on to anyone who does have something to report out. Forgive me if I'm
Nothing to
yes.
report on the LCTI Joint Operating Committee. We have our meeting this week.
Okay, meeting this week. Yes, thank you, Mr. Mond. So nothing for LCTI and facilities, Mr. Boyer.
Facilities was quiet for the last month. We have our meeting on April 2nd, and that will be at Liberty Bell, correct? Liberty Bell Elementary School.
Okay, thank you. And our other committee is technology. Ms. Torba?
I do want to share, Mr. Munn, the fifth graders did get a tour of LCTI this past week. And I have a fifth grader and she was uber excited. I don't know if it was to be out of the building. No offense, Mr. McGinty, but came back and learned a whole lot more than what she had anticipated.
Yeah,
So
that's new
way
to
cool.
LCTI right now. The
Yeah.
goal is to have
Mhm.
better awareness and other career opportunities earlier so that they can have a better understanding earlier to make valued decisions. So I think it was very popular. I think we had over 5,000.
All the schools.
Yeah, all the
all
schools. I think we had over
Yeah.
5,000 fifth graders attending. So busy time. So be prepared for expansions at LCTI if that takes off in the next few years.
I'll let you know, the fifth graders were quizzed on what they learned about LCTI. Well, my particular fifth grader was, so they were paying attention. Yes, you can start in ninth grade. That was a quiz question. Oh, yes. Ooh, technology committee.
Yes.
Just a refresh, the goal of the committee is to review all issues related to technology, including infrastructure, tech support, and its connection to instruction. The committee also reviews continuous long-term tech plans and projects. During our initial meeting in January, we reviewed and discussed the enhancements made to our infrastructure, including the upgrades to our IP phones and copiers. Our most recent meeting was last week, and we were focused on the troubleshooting procedures for hardware and software and the latest developments in hardware technology. That means devices. Throughout our discussion, we pinpointed potential gaps in our SOPs, our standard operating procedures, related to the ticket system and hardware updates. We, the committee, we learned that the district did introduce a new help desk software ticketing system this past August. So that's an improvement and enhancement. And the committee, we're working with administration to understand the current process, followed that students and staff and parents must follow if they encounter a technical issue, how they submit a ticket or a request for assistance. The committee has requested data to summarize the tickets that have been submitted for this school year, to simply identify if there's any areas of concern and to evaluate the effectiveness of the new system. Utilizing all this data is important for us to direct our efforts to effectively address and resolve those identified gaps. In regards to hardware, the fun stuff, right? We've asked administration to present the committee with various options for a hardware refreshment, including the cost, the resources to support and service these devices, along with a proposed timeline for implementation. Evaluating current hardware setup involves comparing various options such as MacBooks, PCs, Chromebooks. You can imagine all the options that are available in education. Additionally, we would want to assess the applications utilized by our staff and our students, focusing on how these applications align with our instructional objectives and the functionality of the hardware. it would be really nice to move forward and maybe form a group within the district from our 5 buildings to, I'm doing air quotes, to test drive different models and versions to see that we are in alignment with our curriculum objectives. We look forward to reviewing this data and evaluating the proposed hardware options. We're eager to work with administration to develop these SOPs and make sure they're distributed to all stakeholders using our tech, which, that's a couple thousand folks here. We're eager to take the opportunity to dive deeper and identify the most suitable hardware solutions that not only align with our instructional requirements, but also reflects our proactive approach to providing the finest resources available. We don't currently have our next meeting on the calendar, but we're looking over the next 3 to 4 weeks to meet, review that data, and move forward with some decision-making and an on-ramp for future items to come. That was lengthy, but we had a really neat, informative meeting where there were a lot of takeaways and things to be excited for.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I didn't miss any committee reports there, did I?
I have two
Was,
coming.
was there an
Yes.
update from the policy committee? So I don't think I heard it.
I gave it at the
Update
last meeting, but we haven't had a meeting since the last board meeting where I gave that update for that committee. At that, I can review what I said before, which was the policy committee reviewed. I don't have my notes in front of me from last time, but the policy committee is going over the 120 series of policies, a number of those related to athletics, including ones we've discussed here already tonight and in other meetings. And those policies will be brought to the board right now. It's been a long time since some policies were reviewed. So as you can imagine, a lot has changed and a lot of language changes are being made and noted. All of those will come to the board. Right now we're in the process of, we needed solicitor input on some of those and we needed language updates for others. We will be looking at those and bringing them to the board once the committee it was unanimous. The committee decided to kind of revisit those and bring them to the board.
When is the next policy meeting?
April 6th, 6th, I don't know. I have the eclipse in my, the first Wednesday of April,
We were
whatever that
moving
is.
pretty diligently and regularly over the past year or so, updating policies. Have you received a response from the solicitor regarding the policy that you referred?
The policy committee has not yet met since my last report. So we have not discussed policy since our last meeting.
Ms. Gaming, could you just give us just a general sense of any changes that are occurring with that particular policy that was referenced? That's 123-2.
There were many revisions to all policies suggested. I have to tell you that other committee members feel free to jump in, but I couldn't even begin to hazard the number of redlining, and even to the point of, I believe, I'm not sure if that policy is one of the ones impacted by a new numbering system, because, for example, PSBA, I'm not sure if the state requires or not, but PSBA has suggested the insertion of a cardiac policy that has substituted a new number that kind of is going to change our numbering system.
Sure.
So they are all interrelated, and
Gotcha.
I couldn't.
I guess I would just like to know if any changes to the particular policy with bringing on girls wrestling.
Right. Yes.
Is that going to be impacted by any changes to that policy 123-2?
Is what going to be impacted?
Bringing on, as we've discussed previously, bringing on girls wrestling as a PIAA sanctioned school team.
That policy that is the reason why. So, for example, the reason why, as it was explained at a prior board meeting, why we can't have girls wrestling on an agenda, say tonight, as a voting item, for example, is because our current policy says that in order to be considered for
So that's
varsity
not-
status.
So
That is the
month ago,
policy that is being
Sure.
examined.
So a month ago, I brought it up to the board.
Yes.
And I was remote, but I brought up to the board that my understanding, my interpretation of that policy does not require a PIAA sanctioned team to come on as a club team. So that's my reading. I provided Ms. Moyer with that policy. I'd love to get her interpretation. I'd love to, I think Dr. Mann had also interpreted it similarly, that it's not required.
And
so I'm a
this
little
is
concerned that there's a delay, in bringing to a vote
Mhm.
For the public. Much what we heard earlier. There's some families in limbo about whether or not they'll even stay in our district, whether or not we have girls wrestling or not. We are a little bit behind. We're behind Palisades, which had, I believe, the first state champion girls wrestling. So just down the road, Palisades, in the Lehigh Valley. So congratulations to her.
Mhm.
But so I think there's a difference in interpretation. I'd love to hear the solicitor's reading of that. And I just want to know if any changes are potentially occurring to policy 123-2 that would force it to be a club sport and not necessarily a supported sport, a PIAA sport.
Well, just to clarify,
Mhm.
and I understand that you're saying, so you're asking me about a policy change, but also embedded in there is your interpretation. So just to clarify, it is your interpretation that our current policy would not prevent wrestling from coming to a board agenda now.
It does not.
And you would like the solicitor to weigh in on
Sure.
that. Okay. And then the other question you're asking is, would any changes impact the ability for wrestling to, I mean, if any aspect of that language did change, of course it would impact wrestling's ability or any other sport's ability to. So at this time, the policy is until it is voted upon by the board to change as it currently stands. And I don't know, Solicitor Moore, if you've had a chance to review or weigh in, but we as a policy committee have not met since our last, and we have not heard anything that has been offered. So if the answer is,
I'm going to put an asterisk here because I just received this policy.
Sure.
right,
So
Dr.
this is
Wayak
my
handed this to you.
knee-jerk, Do not hold me to it.
Sorry.
Knee-jerk reaction
you.
as I read
Thank you,
this.
Mrs. Moore. You just received it today?
Yes.
No. So Chris, Dr. Wayak just handed it to her before the meeting to review.
Yeah, but you had previously reported that it had been forwarded to the solicitor.
No, I said the committee unanimously said that these policies were not ready to come to the full board because the committee recommended solicitor input, and that input is not behind
All
schedule.
right, is it just
Because
this
please do not
policy, or
interrupt
there
me.
other-
Please do not interrupt me.
Did other
Please
policies
do
go to the
not interrupt me.
Did other?
No, I was speaking. I will finish first, and then you may absolutely continue your sentence. So this is not, to be clear, this is not any delinquency on the administration's part, nor our solicitor's part, because the next policy committee meeting where we would need this information to review has not yet been convened. Now, I understand Dr. Wayak would like the solicitor. He handed her this policy before we walked in here this evening. That's part of why I was delayed in walking in the room. We were discussing this with the solicitor about this policy that you handed to her. I do not want to put her on the spot. The administration is not delinquent. The solicitor is not delinquent. The policy committee is going to meet and discuss this. Having said all that, I will give Solicitor Moyer an opportunity to weigh in. Ms. Reinhardt, would you like to ask your question first?
No, I was asking you a question, Mrs. Gaiman. At the last meeting, you said that policies had been submitted to the solicitor.
It is the record.
Now you are telling us that they had not. Now it's clear they have not. Have the other policies that are being considered by the committee, have they been submitted to the solicitor? Yes or no?
It is not my duty or job description to individually take policies to our solicitor for review, just as solicitor review on the board is conducted when the administration turns those documents to the solicitor for review. So if at
So
the
what is
last meeting,
process?
if at the last meeting I said that they have been turned over to the solicitor for review, I misspoke. And I'm sorry, I don't have a transcript of my
I
words.
just want to know the process, then explain the process
So
to
what
me
I
for policy
said-
review.
What I said at the last meeting was, it was the unanimous decision of the committee that we needed solicitor input and review on all of those policies. And that is what we will do when we convene at our next policy committee meeting.
Have the policies been submitted to the solicitor?
I do not know. It is not
Whose job
my-
is that?
Mary Joy, I am not going to entertain this back and forth.
Well, I just need to understand the process. As a board member, I think I have, and the community certainly has, the right to understand the process for policy making, policy review. So what is the process?
Dr. Mann, when board committees or when the board or any other entity, when facilities is in need of a solicitor reviewing a contract or a policy, what is the procedure that, because I have never been as a board member responsible as either the member of a committee or the chair of a committee for taking something individually to the solicitor. That is much more efficiently handled by the administration, so the
That
solicitor is
wasn't
not
my
handling.
question.
So the question is, you're asking the process by which solicitors review policies and
No,
documents?
the question was, how are policies and procedures developed and reviewed by this district? And what is the committee's role in that function?
Well, policies are reviewed at a committee level, just as any other committee procedure is, just like facilities or anything else. Procedures
this
are at
new.
administrative level.
The
So,
policy committee's new, right? Emily?
Dr. Mann, would you please review the process for how a solicitor, and then I'm going to end this discussion. And I'm going to have Solicitor Moyer weigh in if she chooses to, and then I'm just going to end this discussion. Because, Ms. Reinhardt, this is not an effort to educate yourself or the public about transparency. This is an effort to try to, make it look as if I or the policy committee is not doing its due diligence. And personal attacks are not the way forward.
It's not a
This
personal
board-
attack. I'm asking for clarification. There's no personal attack
Ms.
here.
Gaiman, may I
Yes,
speak?
absolutely.
I think it might be helpful. You're asking questions around the policy committee. And the
Could you
process.
Yes. lean in on your mic?
Dr. Ake Little gave us a wonderful presentation when we got started about the standard process around how the policies would be chosen based off of the season, the administration's role in providing red lines to the committee for review. So I think that might be really helpful to send out to the board.
And that's available on the
what I'm
website
asking.
now.
So the first readings will be following for the policies review on the 6th when you meet, or the 3rd when you meet. Those first readings will be at the next board meeting.
Do not know that at this time.
Now, I could take a crack. at
Yes.
this, right, and that is, the first step is that the policies do go out to PSBA for review, and they come back with a broad template that has some flexibility for administration to kind of develop recommendations, right? Then administration, through the leadership of Dr. Ake Little, will meet relevant administrators to the specific policy, be it the business office, the curriculum office, whatever, technology, for example. And then we will develop recommendations to bring to the policy committee for the committee to review. Now, it is very fair to raise the question, the role of the solicitor in this, in that our thought is that part of the fees that we pay to PSBA cover a legal review. So we do not want to be duplicative in sending everything to the solicitor, particularly ones that might be non-controversial, to try to double up. But there are also policies that we may adjust a little bit more than typical, that we might need a review, or there might be some ambiguity. As I recall, the policies that we were reviewing in our last meeting really required some value judgments to take place, some with respect to student discipline, being subject to accountability if it takes place outside of the school setting, and whether if you get in trouble with a party over a weekend, does that mean you can be thrown off a team, for example? So in addition to legal ramifications, there's also value ramifications that went around. And I recall that the committee was going to reflect on that particular issue and get back to us. And then at that point, once they came up with a recommendation, we may have to run it past the solicitor to make sure that we would be in good shape with that. And then with respect to this policy in question 123.2, I don't recall there being, and again, please correct me, I'm just recalling this, right? I don't recall there being any objections to wrestling itself. The question was raised about, is the policy ambiguous to the extent that if we go ahead and approve girls wrestling, would that create an opening for another one of our club teams co-ed soccer to come in and say, well, we must be treated in the same way. So that question was raised. I've read the policy a couple times myself. I think there is some ambiguity. I think it leans toward, we'll defer to Solicitor Moyer, but I think it leans toward allowing it, but a good argument can be made in the other direction. So my thought and recollection was the committee was going to try to address that ambiguity, but not in a way that was designed to delay or to prevent the girls wrestling from being approved. And one point that I did make to the committee that I'll make now is that while we do not have wrestling approved as a sport, administration is taking steps in the background. Should the board approve it in the near future, we hope to be ready and not have our preparation delayed if the board decides at some point to approve this team. So that's a very rough sketch of my recollection. Dr. Ake Little has put together a very nice presentation on process. And with respect to the solicitor, we're doing it in dribs and drabs cautiously where needed, but not wholesale, because that might be just not entirely necessary.
That's really helpful. Thank you very much for explaining and walking us through the process. So is there anything then that precludes us from putting wrestling on the agenda for the next meeting?
What was discussed previously was that this policy 123.2 definitely has impact on whether or not club sports are or are not required. So the thought was that should be addressed first. So depending on the interpretation of, but that is that, and a number of other issues such as, when what we're looking at staffing, when we're looking at wrestling, and when we're writing and doing these policies, it is not with an eye that we are writing a policy just to address a girls' wrestling issue. We are writing a policy to stand the test of time through all sports that might come to us. And so it is not our focus in this discussion. It was not a focus of how this does or doesn't impact girls' wrestling per se, as Dr. Mayen alluded to, but how it would impact all potential sports who would apply. So in no point in time was wrestling specific.
I would agree with you, Ms. Gaiman, on that point. But the argument was made that we could not put wrestling on the agenda until this policy was reviewed. So I feel this is becoming very circular and we need to get some closure to it.
I would ask then Solicitor Moyer to weigh in on the policy and how it impacts our ability and the timing of voting on potentially putting wrestling on an agenda.
Okay. So as I had said, I am reading this as we sit here through the meeting, and I agree with Dr. Mann. I think that you can read this to agree. It is on. It is 100% on. So you could read this to believe that a club sport is not necessary. However, if you look at Section 4, the title itself in the first paragraph specifically talks about a district-recognized interscholastic PIAA sporting team, program, or club. They have to go through everything that is submitted. However, then there is the process, and the process does not talk about recognizing the PIA sporting team, program, or club sport. It specifically just says then school district sponsored activity or club sport. So to me, that's contradictory. So my next question when we would evaluate this and look at it is, what has past practice been when we have evaluated these situations? And then I would go through past practice and then take this policy and tweak it so it is clear one way or the other based upon what the district has done in the past.
That makes sense. Thank you very much.
Can I add one thing there? I would just say I know that the administration tried to clarify the policy in red line, and that's what was reviewed at committee. There were also a couple other items. I believe we talked about the theory of nexus and how that might impact. That was also something needed to solicitor review. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
And I have a list here from the agenda of all the policies that we looked at, and there were several that we said we were not ready to continue at that time because we needed some input from other folks, mostly legal. And so we put brakes on. We weren't ready to present anything tonight, but it's not because we did not. That was probably about a 2.5 hour, 3 hour meeting that we had.
Right.
And we just needed more information. We didn't have it yet. We don't have it now.
And also we did discuss.
So administration is going to be submitting those to the solicitor for review, the ones that you were concerned about?
Particular items that were noted, we asked for feedback. Not every single policy in every single regard. There was some we absolutely had no question over. And to be clear, the committee knew that this actually, to speak to the urgency and the desire of the community and the board to talk about wrestling in a public in the next board meeting, the committee at the conclusion of this meeting said, we would really like to try to have another policy committee meeting between when we last met and this board meeting, because we knew there was a sense of urgency. And we looked at our calendars and folks were going to be out of town, and that was simply not possible to fit in due to different travel plans of administration and of the board members. And so we tried to get another meeting in so that we could advance this quickly, and it just did not work out.
I understand that, but the point
So-
was that, and as Mr. Carney said, you got stalled at the last meeting because you needed stuff to go to the solicitor. You had some questions, and I was just wondering who's responsible for submitting that to the solicitor. Is that Dr. Ake Little?
Dr. Mann?
It is, and it's just, I think, a question of timing at this point, because I believe the committee still has some decisions to make with respect to the direction it wishes to go on a number of policies, because there's like challenging decisions that have to be made that have pluses and minuses on both sides of them.
Sure.
And it was my impression, and I will stand to be corrected, but it was my impression that we were going to try to come down on one side or the other to come to some consensus on which way to go. And then we would develop language, and it would be at that point that we would send it to the solicitor, because sending it to the solicitor prior to that might not be so helpful, because we really wouldn't know which direction we were going. I would say, for example, with respect to student conduct, if we were to say student misconduct outside of school hours will impact their ability to participate in extracurricular activities, then we would put that in and send it to the solicitor and say, can we do that, right? Conversely, if we were to say student conduct outside of school grounds does not impact their ability to play, then that is what we would send to the solicitor. And then when the solicitor would weigh in on either side, as opposed to just sending open questions to the solicitor.
I
So-
understand. And
so-
I truly understand.
Is that?
Yeah, it's helpful. I just,
yeah. And
my
I hope that's
understanding
consistent
was
with the
that
committee.
policy 123.2
Yeah.
was going to be, advanced very quickly
Right.
for the committee to review and for the solicitor to
And I
review.
think the
I
question-
think what I'm finding out tonight is she just received the copy.
Right.
And once again, we're waiting for, I'm not sure what, but
And that's the point, Mrs. Reinhardt. And I think the question for the committee and the board is, can a sports team request and be approved directly to PIAA without going through the club process for 3 years? It's pretty clear in the policy, as I read it, that if you are a club, you must stay for 3 years as a club before you are to be considered for PIAA. What is much less clear to me is if you request directly to become a PIAA, where it does not have the steps in place that if you were a club. So I think that's the question of the policy committee and the board ultimately to take. And to Ms. Moyer's excellent point, what about past practice? And with respect to this girls wrestling, I think it's a very unique situation that I mentioned at our last meeting, that there's really no precedent of a new PIAA sport being created to segregate gender participation. So I think we're kind of on our own as a fresh question to answer. And I think it would be for the policy committee to say, yes, a team can request PIAA recognition without going into the club, or it cannot. Now, if it says it cannot, then that has implications directly for girls wrestling would not be approved for 3 years. But if the committee says, yes, we can be approved, then I don't think there would be anything standing in the way of it coming to the next meeting.
Just to clarify, yeah, go ahead.
Can I make a recommendation?
Yes.
So it sounds like we're waiting for those last choices of the policy committee before it goes to Ms. Moyer for review. I'm going to recommend that we try and schedule a second policy committee meeting before the April voting meeting so that we have a chance to finalize those things, get those to Ms. Moyer for review, and then we can meet again so that we have something. So I think the goal
Makes
was to
sense,
prevent
process.
something
Yeah.
for
Right.
the April voting
I,
meeting.
I think the other thing is it does require two.
Hold on. I
Two-
just, yeah, part of what I was
yeah.
saying, I think you and I are thinking the same thing, Dr. Wyek. So Dr. Mahan said that if you were talking about if the policy committee then recommends and does this first take, but ultimately this entire issue comes to the full board for its approval and discussion. So it is not that the policy committee is or is not approving. It is, we're going through that just as any other committee operates. So yes,
Can
and
I
then
just ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Could all the board members be provided with the red line versions?
you
of
will
that,
absolutely,
please?
you will be. That's our intent, as
Thank
was
you.
explained in the process
Yeah.
on Dr. Little's initial presentation for the committee.
Great.
Every single comma and red line will be provided to the
Yeah.
board on every policy, not just this, but on all policies. What changes, what the copy that was before, and every single indication for what changes were made.
Great.
Yes.
I appreciate that. I just wanted to, I don't know if this is going to be addressed at the policy, but one thing I did want to make the whole board aware. So a club sport is by definition a board approved sporting team or organization that holds regular practices and may participate in contests, but is not recognized by the board of school directors as an interscholastic PIAA sports team / program by the district. So again, I don't know what implications that would potentially have as a club sport. You know, it's basically saying it's not recognized by the district. And one of my worries, particularly with girls wrestling, is that this is a PIAA sanctioned sport. It's not a new sport. It's just it's a girls program. So I agree. I do think it is unique. But just that messaging is also, what it would send, I think is important for the board to recognize. If it's a club sport, it's really not recognized. And I don't know what implications that could potentially have with girls participating in PIAA sanctioned events in districts and so on and so forth. So I think that that's an important thing to consider if you are looking at that policy, perhaps, addressing that definition.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Mon.
I just have two things. Number one, Ms. Gaiman, you had mentioned language, working on language in the policies. I just want to understand just an overall concept of what you meant by language. Is it legal language basically, or other things when you talked about you're reviewing language in the different policies? That's all I wanted to ask.
Just every single policy, when it's what the definitions are and what the policy is, just the words in the entire policy on every policy. The
Okay.
language, no particular definition,
Okay.
no.
Okay. And then secondly, Ms. Reinhartz, when you served with me on LCTI, Joint Operating Committee, you were on the policy committee. So I just wanted to get a very quick Reader's Digest version of that process, that when it came to us as a board, we had the first set readings, but the background to that at the committee.
The committee members met with administration and with the solicitor prior to every meeting. There was a structure for all the policies that were being reviewed with target dates. They went to first reading, second reading, feedback from the board. So the committee actually worked pretty dynamically with both administration, the solicitor, and the actual board on a very regular, aggressive basis to get it done, because there's a lot of policies and you have to have a process for doing this consistently and regularly. Otherwise, it gets into limbo land and you're going to be spinning language ad infinitum and it won't get done.
I agree. Actually, Dr. Little gave a wonderful presentation at our first policy committee meeting and attached it, I believe, to the subsequent agenda and items. I just went to pull it up, and I'm not sure if it's because I'm not logged in a Google account at all. It does appear on the agenda. You can see the entire, actually, Mr. Carney has a printout of it right there, but you can see online the entire process as laid out. Mr. Carney's holding up those slides. Could we just double check? Yeah, and it sounds very similar to what you laid out with LCTI and their policy committee procedure. Dr. Little, could we just could we just make sure, could we just task you to double check that link and make sure it's active for both the public and the other board members on that agenda? You don't have, not right now, just, but by the end of, so it's up and running by tomorrow morning. Just make sure everyone has access and there aren't any, sign-in procedures that we have to jump through to see that slide presentation. All right, Ms. Torba.
Yeah, Ms. Gaiman, just to make sure I understand, we do, in fact, and to address Ms. Reinhardt and Mr. Munn's question, we do have a process in play to review the policies and a way to redline and a way to get them all the way to resolution.
And yes.
Yes, I just want to confirm.
And that is also laid out on that slide presentation attached to the agenda that Dr. Little is checking on for us right now.
Okay.
All right. Now, going back to our agenda, we were in board committee reports. What? Yes, we were in board committee reports.
I have the Ed Committee. I see some people that attended the last time. They're the cheerleading back there. April 4th, we will be meeting here in the boardroom at 4:15. We'll be talking about handbook, code of conduct, and kindergarten, full-time kindergarten, an initial, where we are, where we could head. Dr. Trinkle and I just had a great discussion about what that meeting might look like. And then already tentatively, we're looking at mid-May for another meeting. ACMC, we met March 20th. We approved one application. Another was discussed, and it will have to come back for resubmission. We discussed deadlines for applications to be submitted each month for consideration by our committee. There were already deadlines listed. I think it has to be in by the 1st of each month for applicants, and then another deadline of the 15th. But we're going to make sure that those deadlines are placed on the application itself. And if I'm saying something wrong, please let me know. We talked about guidance and criteria for which classes we could be approving. And the teachers, Ethan and I, felt that the PDE approved list of providers matches our goal, since they've already been looked at by the state. It doesn't mean that everything that's on the PDE list, if somebody submits for a class, would automatically be approved. It depends on, what position they're in and some other questions. And if it wasn't on the PDE list, it doesn't mean it would be rejected automatically. We just have to do some more research and see how it fits into our school district. Our next meeting is going to be April 17th. That's it.
All right, thank you. Any other committee reports? All right, moving on to anything under new business. Does anyone have anything under new business? Then on other business, the board members will see before them the ballots for the elections of the CLIU board members. These represent, as Southern Lehigh, I represent Southern Lehigh on that CLIU board. Each member district selects a board member to represent itself. And then these are the individuals that those school districts have recommended, they have voted to send these individuals to represent their districts at the board. And it is simply a pro forma. It's 5 individuals for 5 positions from each of the 5 school districts that need to have new representatives elected. And so if you'll fill that out this evening and turn it in before you leave to Ms. Libley.
How do we make a decision when we have no knowledge of the biography or background or experience of these individual candidates?
Well, I would say the same way that the other board members who, for instance, in Catasauqua or Whitehall, voted to allow me to join the board, because when the school board here selected me and put me on this ballot, they voted on me. The same information was provided each time. So essentially, you vote your conscience, but these are the individuals that each of those districts have selected from their boards to represent themselves.
I'm not sure what you mean by I vote my conscience.
If you feel you do not have enough information and you do not feel comfortable casting a vote, Ms. Reinhardt, you vote your conscience if that is your issue. However, we do not have any other bios to supply. Mr. Carney.
They're all going to win. There's only 5 candidates. So on this one, it's
Yeah.
not a big deal.
No,
Yeah, they're all going to win.
I think I think it is a fair point to raise. And
Yes.
I would say it along the lines of, like, when we get an electric bill, Mr. Pepe lists it and you get to vote on it, but we have to pay it anyway because so these members were elected and appointed by their school districts. So they're just simply sending this out by way
So
of
this is a
notice.
bureaucratic rubber
It
stamp
is
is
a
what.
bureaucratic rubber
Yes,
stamp in the
exactly.
purest sense
I
of the
don't
word.
vote on bureaucratic
And-
rubber
and
stamps.
that will be totally fine.
So
That
for-
vote your conscience in that regard. If you don't vote on those, that's absolutely fine.
I did have some other business, but
Yes,
speaking
Mr.
to
Carney.
two of the candidates, I know Jen Cenovitis and I know Barb Sipler, if that makes a difference, either for or against voting for them. I know Barb Sipler very well, so she actually is on the school board in Weatherly, and she's done a lot of work for education. Robotics, Mr. Pipp said, board members, if you want to go to Lehigh, he's going to be sending out invites for all of us. It's at Stabler, and they are like the University of Pittsburgh. They are one of the first teams out. At this point, I think they're 24th, and the top 20 get to go to Worlds. They did have hiccups, and they're hoping to fix what happened so that they can make it and get back to the way that we're in the first competition. The musical, I just want to say, amazing. Thank you for everybody. There's a lot of familiar faces here that showed up to support the kids. The next dates to look for are May 9th. That's when the Freddie nominations come out, and I fully suspect we will have a lot of them. And then the Freddie Awards are May 23rd. And I just want to say, I've gone to the musicals before, but it was the first time as a board member I was able to attend the Senior Citizens Night. And what a terrific community event. It was lovely, and a lot of positive feedback that I told people that I would bring here tonight. A lovely meal served by students, and National Honor Society actually helped me out at concessions one of the nights. So keep up the good work as far as community connections. I love that program. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. I'd just also like to add, I had the opportunity to attend the intermediate school musical this weekend, which was wonderful to see. And also, speaking of how our students and their programs and their performances impact other students in our community and in our district, a really special thing happened last week at the intermediate school. Fourth grade had its concert, and the fourth graders were able, the fourth grade chorus was able to choose the first song it wanted to sing as a part of its concert. And kids submitted different ideas, and whatever they could get, the teacher could get arrangements for at an elementary level. It was narrowed down by that availability of arrangement. And then from those selections, the kids voted. And ultimately, the first song they chose to sing as a fourth grade class was No. This is the impact on the programmatic week, kids watching kids and modeling and mentoring each other. It was the theme song from last year's musical Rock of Ages. And so they sang Don't Stop Believing. So that in and of itself shows us how these kinds of programs, like our kids are not only watching us, but they're watching each other, and they're watching, older kids, and how much that experience impacts our entire community. It made that much of an impression that that was the song they chose to sing. So I just wanted to say it was a real pleasure to hear that as well. Yeah, Taylor, I don't know. I don't know what the other options were. All I know is it was sung. So thank you. Any other news or other business or new business? All right, seeing none, we have three items here for information only. And then I'm moving on to visitor comment. Do we have any other visitors this evening, Ms. Lovely? Seeing none, we have no need for an executive session. So I'm looking for an adjournment. Thank you, Mr. Boyer. We are adjourned.